Hello, everybody.
Hey,
We
hi.
are we are here for another episode of Elephants in the Practice Room. You're here with Sarah and Jolene, and today we are attacking student-teacher relationships. It's a big one. Okay, so at the end of the day, you pick a teacher, you sometimes pick your students, and then at the end of the day, it is a relationship, right? Often one-on-one interaction. Jolene, I guess, do you want to start with the role of a teacher or the role of a student? Which angle do you want to start with?
I think we should start with the student and like what we should look for if we're students when we're looking for a teacher and not just like, oh, can the teacher play? Because some of the best players are not some of the best teachers.
Sure.
And what makes a healthy teacher? And then I think we've got some examples of not healthy teachers. So like from a student perspective, what do we look for? So you started really, really young and you got paired with a teacher in your area, right? You didn't really have
hmm
any other options? Okay. And how did
Yeah,
that
my
work?
my parents had to look for a long time to find somebody. I think they looked for about 6 months, really.
Oh my gosh.
And so they found someone and it, ended up being good in a lot of ways. Didn't have to travel super far, but traveled a little ways. And then I was with that teacher so I started age 8 on harp. I had taken piano before that. Wanted to play when I was 5, started harp when I was 8. And so I stayed with that teacher until graduated high school.
Hmm.
So that's a long time to be with one teacher, and that's often how our relationships work, right?
Yeah. Well, like as a young kid, you didn't really have a lot of say in the teacher that you were paired with, right? It was mostly like your parents betting, and your parents aren't musicians. So did they just choose a teacher that was geographically close? Like that was your only option? I mean, I know from an oboe side, there weren't a lot of oboe teachers
Yeah,
as
so
well, but I was
how did
lucky.
you get paired? School?
I started on piano as well. No, not school. So I started on piano as well with my mom. Like she played piano for the church and a lot of church things, and
Mm,
she was my first teacher. I'm responsible for everything. But in elementary school in fourth grade up in New York, I was put on the oboe. I didn't know what it was. That's another whole fun story. But I remember looking up what an oboe was in an encyclopedia, like a real book, on the couch with my mom crying because I didn't get put on the flute. And it's made a career and we've done okay so far. But the band teacher started me. Her name was Sherry Levine, and she was a clarinet teacher, and she was just really like fun and energetic and clearly loved music. I remember she would play her clarinet with lipstick, and she would always have like a lipstick like ring on her reed. And was still a beautiful player, but now that's a thing. I always am sad that I can't wear lipstick when I play. But they have like stains now that you can still
but
play and it
you're
doesn't come off your transfer purse. But
so
oh,
that's
go
like
ahead.
that's like taboo. Like you're not supposed to play with
Well,
lipstick on.
no, like because it's like imagine playing harp after you just put like lotion on your hands. Not only is it
Mm,
slippery, but it like gets all over the strings. But um
got it. Okay.
now I had a student come in. This is a side note. A student come in and she had like that lip stain on.
hmm
And she's like, look, it doesn't stain my reeds. I'm like, well, that's cool. Advanced technology. So anyway,
Great.
she put me on oboe and I played oboe for a couple of years, but I had a piano teacher. She had a daughter who played oboe as well. Even I was taking piano lessons with her. Her daughter is a couple of years older than me, was coming and going, and she ended up being a professional oboist too, which is really weird because we're from the middle of nowhere, state New York. So to have two, professional oboists come out is it's kind of awesome. But as I was playing piano with her daughter would come in and kind of work with me on a little bit of oboe things, and I would work with my piano teacher on some oboe things because she knew oboe. And then about sixth grade, she was like, "We need to get you with a real oboe teacher." And she connected me with her daughter's oboe teacher. His name was Mike Skavinsky. He was in like the city like that we lived in, if you can call it like a city, it's a small area. And he was a professional oboist and he was an organist for the local church, but he was an oboist by training and he was really wonderful. And I studied with him from sixth grade all the way up until like 11th and 12th grade when I left to go to college. But I really started getting serious with him in ninth grade when he gave me the Vaughan Williams oboe concerto. And then I got competent enough that I could, and I think this was a big part of my growth very quickly, is when I started sitting next to him in orchestra. So he's like, okay, I can trust you to show up and like at least play second oboe. And I think that immersion of sitting next to your teacher was, I mean, I thought he was wonderful. I, worshiped the ground he walked on, just as a player and as a professional. And I also appreciated that he had faith in me to, show up and get most of the notes anyway. And I played at his local university's orchestra where they would bring in professionals from the city but I remember this one concert we did, Daphnis and Chloe, the second suite, and that was way above my pay grade as like a high schooler. And there's like a little second oboe solo, and where this was before we could just hop on Spotify and like find recordings of things. And I didn't know the score. I was just, practicing my own music, but I didn't know that the whole orchestra drops out and it's this little second oboe solo. And my like heart stopped. And I started like seeing, I didn't eat properly. I was probably just had a whole bunch of coffee with no food. And then like your heart starts pounding. And I started like seeing stars and kind of going black and falling over. And he just was like, he kind of like puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, just keep going, just keep playing through it. And then I remember he like kind of gave me like the dad talk afterwards. He's like, let's talk about what happened. Now, did you eat it was a late night rehearsal. Did you eat anything? You got to stay hydrated. And, if you're prepared, you just keep. Anyway, it was a big learning experience, but play next to your teacher. I'm sure you went to gigs with your teacher as well, right? Or as harpist is probably because you're always like a solo person, right?
Yeah. The good thing that my teacher did for me was she did get me in to play with other instrumentalists, whether it would be like, so I didn't do anything music related through my school, any of my schools, because the program wasn't there. So I ended up going and playing with either youth orchestras, or she was on faculty at a university. So even when I was, good enough, like late high school, she would bring me in and I would sub with the orchestra there.
Yeah.
And get my experience there. And then actually, I mean, yeah, she used to put me in little like community orchestra situations even as a kid. And I didn't know at the time.
She made that connection for you.
She made the
right?
connection. Yeah. Yeah. And she would just be like, okay, yeah, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And yeah, it was a huge, huge, growth opportunity for sure. So typically I would go, myself and then report back. I mean, my parent would take me, obviously, but I think there were a few times here and there, like where she did come and sort of, help me a little bit. But I think she never brought her harp or anything. It was like she would sit there with me and like help me count or whatever. I recall once that happening. But yeah, but it was mostly like, as a harpist too, like you don't get to have the luxury of going to the 6 weeks of rehearsal. It's like you learn your part, and typically you go in, at least my situation was, you go in for like the dress rehearsal and then the concerts.
And you were like a freshman.
Yeah. Or
right?
like, I remember my first opportunity was I was an 8th grader. And then, yeah, I remember I told you this recently, I learned the whole Nutcracker Ballet to play a rehearsal with an adult orchestra, mind you, adult orchestra. But I played a rehearsal for somebody. And hey, that was a great learning experience. I crash learned it in like a month. But
was it like mostly okay? It
was good. Of course it was okay.
I mean, duh. But
I mean, there were
little 8th grader going. That's intimidating. Yeah. Like there were little person, even as a sub going in an orchestra that you don't know, like let alone a kid. There's always that. But you've got pretty thick skin about that stuff too.
I think that
sometimes
depends.
Depends.
I think some of that was learning how to just be incredibly on, because you have such limited time, right? So that was that definitely flexed that muscle. And
like how to learn hard music quickly, like that strategy. Yeah.
And also just to make sure you're really, really on for that one rehearsal that you have, right? So back in the day, I'd get the like little cassette out or the CD or whatever and like play with the recording like every single day.
Records.
Yeah.
I remember my oboe teacher had a whole wall.
Well, yeah,
LPs, and he
Yeah,
would pull
mine.
out, he's like, this is
Yeah,
Heinz Holliger, you should listen to
right.
him, and then you should listen to this guy do the Mozart. And
Mm-hmm.
I probably still have a few of them somewhere.
Yeah, my teacher had records too, and I did have a tiny little, I had I love it when you see it on social, see all these like, these nostalgic posts. Like one of the things I remember was like the little Fisher Price, turntable, the record player. Like
I
I've
swear, I
had
thought you were
that.
gonna say like the
No, I
Easy
had
Bake
that.
Oven or something. Oh,
No,
okay,
no, no.
okay,
I had that. I had that record player. I had
that's
it.
awesome.
I love it.
It's probably
Anyway,
worth a lot of money now. But
yeah, maybe like the Teddy
do you
Ruxpin
do
or
you
whatever his
think
name is.
that I mean, I know that it helped you like playing at such a high level at such an early age, but I mean, and I know that you involve your students in gigs and things as you think is appropriate, but do you think that that helped you, or did that totally stress you out? Did you feel obligated to
What a
say
good
yes
question.
because your teacher set this up, or like, because I know Anna,
Mm-hmm.
she's been asked to do
Right.
several gigs.
Right.
And it's not because she can't do it, but she will flat out say, no, I have too much on my plate right now. And
Right.
I'm like, who
Yep.
are you? Like, adults don't even like, actually, I know I could do it, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that I have a full plate right now. Girl,
Sure.
I need some of that.
Right. Yeah, it's very
So
wise. Very
did
wise
that
of
stress
her.
you out? I mean, you definitely felt obligated to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think looking back, definitely there was like, oh, I
Because she
think,
trusted you a lot.
yeah, I think a lot of teachers today, and even like the old mentality quote, and still a lot of teachers today, it's like they tell you what to do, right? So it was very much that relationship of like, okay, so, you're gonna, so and so needs a harpist for X. And so I set you up with Y. And like, and like, didn't always ask my parents directly either. Like for, I mean, it was wonderful, but at the same time, it was like you did feel the pressure to do it for sure. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of times I was excited about it and wanted to do it, like specifically
Sure.
that Nutcracker. I mean, music is just so exciting, especially when you're a
Hmm.
kid and whatever.
Hmm.
And also, I think there's just, for me, it was like, if I'm being honest, it wasn't about the music. It was about the challenge and completing the task and like achieving the goal, right?
You're very stubborn. Yes, I
Yeah,
understand that.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But it's more like about like, finishing the race versus like, I mean, I hate to say it, like I didn't know anything about the music as far as like when it was written or the context of it or even the story of the Nutcracker. I just knew
Mm,
that the harp plays on these movements and this is how it sounds and this is how you play it, right?
mm, mhm.
So on that note, and I know there's not time for everything, but on that note, introducing your students to more the context of the music and like there's value in putting them through the paces, right? And turning out the notes and like getting to the next thing, which I think that was a really, really good thing for me because I got to be a really good sight reader. Like I can sight read, I'm sorry, I can sight read better than most harpists.
You
Like I
can.
can.
And that was like one of the first thing you said straight out when we first started working together, because I didn't know
Oh,
it's a
right.
thing. Like I didn't know that
Yeah.
sight reading on harp was like such a challenge, but now that I know more about harp, I like it makes sense, but I'm very spoiled by you
Mm.
that we can just pretty much whip through music when we're looking for stuff.
But it's a detriment because you don't always learn things to this like super high level, right? Because you're always going on to the next thing. So it's a blessing and a
Right.
curse.
Right.
Also, there were certain things that I didn't get, like I didn't get pushed to memorize music. Whether or not that's important was this whole other, so
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I think that would be interesting to talk about too, because wind players in general, at least in the States, were not really pushed
Mm-hmm.
to memorize things
Mm-hmm.
as much as like it's expected that string players are. It's expected that pianists
Mm-hmm.
memorize, their recitals and things. So I'd like to dig into
So
that later too. But my teacher never pushed to memorize either. And even in college and grad school, there was never that push. I was, as you were chatting a second ago, I was thinking another thing that I think my teacher did early on when I was young that I think is really healthy that I try to still do for my students too is I always let my students know about my gigs.
mm,
And if they can come, I give them comp tickets if they're
mm,
available. And I remember seeing my teacher play at gigs thinking like, I want to do that. Or
mm,
like, wow. Or even as embarrassing as this, when I would hear him make a mistake, I wasn't like, sucks, he makes a mistake. It was almost like he's human too, because he's on such this pedestal. And when I heard him make the very rare mistake, it was like, well, he kept going and he didn't die. And, he's not going to lose sleep over it the night before. He's not going to be even thinking about it. Oh, maybe he was. I don't know. We don't share a lot of those thoughts. But going to hear my teacher play in a professional setting was, I think, a really good, healthy thing for me to do instead of just always playing, but encouraging to go out and listen. And I think that's something I've carried through. I would look for a teacher that is still performing. I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's kind of, okay, that's a good question. So why is it important for your teacher to still be performing, in your
I
opinion?
want to be really careful because I know that there are teachers that are not performing regularly, and that are wonderful teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's something about the application of everything that you do in the lesson and seeing it happen in real life that
Sure.
makes it click for me. I'm a why person. Like you are, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
well, why do I have to like make this articulation as clean as it's supposed to be? Well, it's because you have to play it with these other instruments and they have to all sound, the notes have to be exactly the same length because you're working as a team. And you know, you can play along to recordings and stuff nowadays. I was just doing it, earlier this morning, running through my gig music for next week.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a student, seeing your teacher, it really is more like oh, remember when I told you you had to hydrate before? Well, this is why. Remember when I told you to bring layers to a concert? Like, I'm not just telling you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I do that. Remember when I told you, like, to swab your instrument out in between movements? Well, you heard the water that got stuck in my oboe this time. Like, don't do that. I have a really good example. A couple weeks ago, I did a gig. I did Mahler, and I don't even know if I told you this. I was playing second, and there's this really cool little oboe duet that comes up in one of the movements, and I had water stuck in my G tone hole, and I was very quietly. I didn't have time to swab, but I had time to get the little drying paper, like this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just dab it out. But I did something really stupid and I left it in there just a second too long. And when I went to pull the paper out, it ripped because I didn't realize how much water had flooded that tone hole. And it got stuck in the tone hole. Did I tell you this?
Yes.
It got stuck in the tone hole. Okay, good. I'll finish it then. And luckily, because there's, a million oboes in a Mahler symphony, another oboist, she like handed me her oboe and she goes, give me this, because we had to jump right in for that duet. I didn't have time to like fix it, but I wasn't even panicky. I was like, it was a rehearsal.
Okay,
and
okay, good.
so, yeah, it wasn't during the concert. It was during a rehearsal. And so she grabbed my oboe and she was getting that out. And I grabbed hers and played hers for the duet. And by the time we were done, she had fixed mine and we swapped back, and I'll send her some Christmas cookies or something.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
I think those real life situations, like if I had a student see that happen,
Mm-hmm.
as if I was a student and I saw that happen to my teacher, I'd be like, wow, like stuff really happens, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out a way through it. And I just feel like it's validating that,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always going to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
all the
Well, it's
time.
also
And you
good
have to have a
that
plan.
you're right. It's good that you're experiencing those things, right? Like the oh crap moments, so that you can share that even in a lesson, right? Like
I shared it
be
to every
authentic,
single student. Right. I was
right?
like, don't
And be
do
like,
this.
hey, listen to what happened, like to me, like so just they see you're a real person, and it makes you
Yeah.
more relatable. And
Well, you had a string break in something, I remember.
yeah,
You were
so the
with a
same,
second,
yeah,
you were another harpist,
very
and you had
similar
to,
thing happened.
yeah.
Yeah, very similar.
But it was a
So
concert, right? Wasn't it a performance?
yes, it was a performance. And I mean, but that's why you practice so many times and you do it the same exact way every time. And yeah, it's awesome when people can be there to actually like be on your side and help you out, right? And I've heard many stories of people doing things like this. It's really good to
There's a lot of
hear.
good YouTube videos on that. But I think as a student, I would really go down a rabbit hole looking at those, like, if, oh shit moments, and
Mm-hmm.
think like, well, they didn't die and this is what they did. And there's
Right.
contingency plans. Um, Yeah. Did you have, okay, so we talked about elementary and high school, and then you
Mm-hmm.
went into college. You had a different teacher in college, right?
Yep. Of course. Yep. Different teacher in college and then different teacher. So I took some time between undergrad and grad, and I didn't have a teacher at that point. And then I went to grad school and had another teacher. And then, I mean, like we all do, we study with like this person for a little bit and that person for a little bit, like whether it be a
Mm-hmm.
summer festival or just some lessons on the side or whatever. But yeah, at a certain point, I mean, you kind of like are done with the formal, weekly lessons and stuff. And, you have to do it on your own. So can we just talk about what are some attributes that you think are important as a teacher? Like if you were making a list of like
So
somebody,
as a teacher who's teaching or as a student who is looking for a teacher, like what perspective? Want to do like a student perspective? If you're a
yeah,
student,
like if you're a
these are the
student,
things
what
that
should
are,
you be looking for? Yeah.
yeah,
Do you think is
I think
important?
that's really good. Well, I think first we should separate it into age. Like if you're a young student who's just starting, I think there's different qualities than I would want if I was like looking for a college professor as well. So
Okay. So tell
if
me
I was,
both.
well, like if I'm, I work with a lot of baby oboe players. So if I was a student looking for a teacher, I would want a teacher who obviously is patient, right?
Mm,
Obviously is patient because every kid is built differently, but I would want a teacher who would let it be okay for me to ask questions.
mm,
Like, why do I have to have this finger this way and this
mm,
finger slightly curved?
mm,
Why do I have to, crow on my reed before I put it on the oboe? Why do I have to swab my instrument out every single time? I know
mm.
that seems obvious, but sometimes for babies, it's not.
Sure.
And I know in the past, I have worked with teachers that don't like it when you question so directly. And I'm a pretty direct person now, but well, the answer because I told you to, or because that's just how we do it,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't work for me. Like, I'm not going
Right.
to have buy in. I'm not going to be invested to do my best for you if you can't explain why it's important. I mean, and there are students who are just like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I want to play fast and I want to do this. But for me, I need a teacher who's patient enough to be, this is why. I would also, as a young student in this environment, I guess, I would look for a teacher who values, this is slippery slope, but values mental health as well and talks about
Mm,
that from day one of lessons, of the life balance, of the, I don't want you practicing 40 hours a day, 8 days a week.
mm-hmm.
This is the minimum to get us going. I want you to have family time. I want you to take that vacation and not take your oboe with you because when
Mm,
you come back, and as a student, that really makes me excited to play on my oboe because it gives me permission to have a life outside of just this one thing. And so they're really not necessarily musical qualities the more I'm talking this
mm-hmm.
through. I think they're more just interpersonal, that relationship of we have to click, we have to
Yeah.
be able to have a banter even a little bit. I have some really quiet students right now, and I have some that can just blah, 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 and I have to keep redirecting and stay on task. But if I was a student, I would want a teacher who could kind of accommodate me and my energy and my emotions because I'm a pretty
Mm-hmm.
emotional person and I wouldn't have always come into a lesson 100% on. Sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
did, sometimes I didn't. And I would want the teacher to, start off every lesson with, how was your week? What's going on? You seem kind
Mm,
of like, because I mean, and yes, I am modeling that now to my students, but I think that would set the course of the lesson as
sure.
in, can I push you a lot this lesson
Yep.
or do we need to like just work musical things and,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's not going to be the best lesson ever if I go into the lesson and my boyfriend and I just had this big breakup this week.
Right.
I'm not
Yep.
going to play my best. And
Yep.
I want the teacher to recognize that, oh, you're off. Like, give me like the 60-second version of what's happened so I know how to tailor the rest of the lesson that's appropriate for you in this moment. Because it's
Yep.
not just like, because we're very malleable, like from day to day, even and especially as middle schoolers and high schoolers,
Oh yeah.
with the plates that are so full and overflowing these days. I had 3 students cry in lesson this week.
Yeah.
3. And none of it had to do with oboe.
Right.
None.
Yeah. We're kind
Nothing
of,
musical about that.
yeah. Yeah. Especially different points of the semester, there's different
Yeah.
loads of work and,
So
yep, different
I would want
demands
a
for sure.
teacher who's very human at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm more interested in this relationship, then like I don't want somebody that's going to drill me into the ground, because we can talk about those teachers in a minute, and I have some very, very sad and upsetting stories about those things that I know nobody's going to listen to this podcast, so I'm very free to talk about those things. But what about you?
Don't say
If
that.
you were a student, well, it's at this point where I don't care, and they deserve to be called out if that's the case. But if you were a student still, what would be, or old Sarah, what would be important for you in hindsight?
Well,
like when you were, because I know we
I
can't
can't say
choose
old
so much
Sarah
as if we're
because
little, because you're
yeah,
different than old Sarah.
right. So in hindsight, I think it's really important, like you said, the chemistry between you and the teacher. Like,
Yeah, I
it's
didn't say that word, but that's what I was talking about. Yep.
yeah, it's like it's an incredibly personal relationship. You're going to be working with this person very intimately for probably on a weekly basis. You do have to, not immediately, but over time, you have to feel like you are able to be yourself. And if you're coming in guarded, if you're coming in as like this shell of your real self, like how are you going to be able to actually,
Give all yourself to the music in that moment,
yeah,
and
like express yourself in the music and be authentic there, right? So I think it's really important to have that feeling of safety. And so
safety.
knowing that it is a safe zone for you to be real about your emotions, or be real about what's going on in your life, be real about your feelings about the music and your work, your process. And so a person that's really going to see you as you, and also a teacher that's going to be able to really evaluate your strengths and also your weaknesses, and
right.
be able to like build you up where you need to be built up, and put you in that, positive space to like actually receive the, now we got to work on these other things. So you don't just feel like you're constantly like, oh, you're a piece of shit and you got to work on these 20 things.
Right.
So you need that person that's not going to like sugarcoat or, dance around the bush or whatever. Beat around the bush.
I mix dance around the bush. Yeah,
I mix up my little metaphors all the time. Anyways, so yeah, somebody who's not going to sugarcoat things and tell you like it is, but not like make you feel horrible about yourself at the same time, right? Like, hey, I know you're really trying here. You're doing XYZ really, really well. Like, I love the way you did this. Could we do this one thing better? Versus, okay, here's a laundry list of 20 things that you did terribly. Anyway, that's kind of a different vein. But anyway.
Sure, a little bit, but it's still the same. I thought of another something as you were talking.
Sure.
Just because I'm seeing it a lot now in our industry too, of I would be looking for a teacher. I'm going to look in the camera. I'm talking to people who are looking for teachers. If you're looking for a teacher, I would encourage you to find somebody who is a very clear communicator and who shows up and responds to messages and shows up on time and doesn't ghost you. There's been this whole movement right now in our teaching bubble of younger teachers coming in to teach younger students, right? And then just decide that it doesn't work for them. And so they just ghost. They like just disappear. And the student's like, I don't know, I haven't seen my teacher in 6 weeks. And they're playing on reeds that are like 2 months old and cracked and chipped, and they're wondering why, students are dropping. So if you're a student, really look for somebody that is established and that has good recommendations, and that maybe you can take a complimentary lesson with and ask them, what are your teaching protocols? How do you like to communicate? Are you a texter? Are you a caller? You call people. I'm a texter, but you're always good about phone calls.
Well, but I mean, I'm
you
good
text
about
as too.
I
Right.
text
You were
for
very good
sure,
about text.
but
yeah, but it's not
like,
uncommon for you to call.
No, because sometimes it's just quicker and easier and more direct and whatever.
Yeah.
But I want to say one little caveat. Sorry to pick you apart, but
no,
you said look for somebody who's established. It doesn't mean that you have to find a teacher that's like been teaching for 20 years. It means somebody that's like confident in themselves and is going to be actually like good at communicating with you, right? That's what you're saying?
Because it's a skill, and we're getting better and better at it. Like even now I'm still learning, but and I think each student kind of communicates in a different way. Like I have some students that will just text me like, hey, I need 2 reads. And I'm like, kind of the mom comes out at me. I'm like, let's try that again.
Mm,
Let me
mhm,
rewrite this for you. Hi,
mhm,
Mrs. Seshadri. How are you? And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just in a hurry. And I have some
mhm,
students that will text with like 50% emojis,
mhm,
you know? So I think finding the right communication style of
mhm.
teacher or having a
Mode.
teacher that will meet you
Yeah,
in your communication style, that's
right.
what I guess what is what I want. And that will show up. Like if I don't run late very often, but
Mhm,
if I do,
mhm,
I will either send a text to the student. I mean, not that they
mhm,
can get them because we can't have phones in schools right now in
mm,
Texas,
mhm,
that new law, but I'll text a director and say, I'm running 5 minutes
mm,
late, or,
mhm,
and I always will let the parents know as well. And I think that's why I have a good retention rate of my
mhm,
students too. And I think that was always a good thing of the teachers that I had growing up is, as a student, you don't really know how to communicate effectively
mhm.
anyway, but having a teacher who can model that communication and set those professional expectations, um, I think is healthy. I think is healthy,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Agreed. That well, it's largely about respect, right? And
right?
you're you're wanting to be respected as the student and the teacher, and so you show that respect. It's just common courtesy,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
treat each other people how you want to be treated, sort of thing. Okay, so yeah, I think chemistry is the biggest thing. Communication is huge.
Respect, you said.
Respect.
Do you give like a trial lesson? Like when a student is trying to like
Yeah,
start up with you? It's
yeah.
a personal thing for me, but I would look for a teacher before I got
Hmm.
involved with them to
Yeah.
say, can I
Try
have a
different
lesson to
teachers.
see if we click?
Definitely. Definitely try
And
different
some
teachers.
teachers, they'll
Yep.
charge for those lessons, and some teachers are like,
Right.
complimentary first
Right.
lesson. And
Right.
I do that as a personal policy because I'm also interviewing the student to see if
Sure.
it's going to be a right fit for me. And I know we'll talk about the teacher side in a
Sure.
second, but from a
Yeah.
student looking for, I'll tell my high schoolers who are trying to go off into college, take multiple lessons with multiple teachers, and not only
Hmm.
like love the way that they play, but see if you like them, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
like them as a human being.
Yeah.
And because if you don't, and even if they're an awesome, badass player and have a reputation as a good teacher, if you don't like who they are, if you don't like,
Yeah.
the vibe, trust your gut because
Right.
there's a
There's a
lot of
lot of people.
teachers.
Yeah.
There's a
There's a
lot
lot
of
of
people.
options out there. Yep.
There's a lot. There's a lot. There's no shortage. You can find people, but
Well,
I
what
think that
about,
first lesson is
I know,
important.
thumbs up, yeah.
I like that.
What about when you're the student? Of course, you don't know necessarily as the student always, but let's say you're a more advanced student or you have some advanced knowledge or you're a parent who's a musician and so your child's being set up for these music lessons now, kind of like how you were. Do you go in and do you sort of grill them on their teaching style and or their like structure or like their teaching philosophy quote? Like do you
I
go
hate
through all
that
that or do you
language.
not?
I don't. Did
Well,
I
what
do
do you
that with
think?
you? I don't know. So to be clear, Aunt Sarah is
Ish.
my daughter's harp teacher. That's actually how we met.
Yeah, I mean, you
I
vetted
think
me and I could
I
tell,
did, but I also,
but you were kind
I
about it.
have a professional network, and I asked around. I'm like, hey, do you
Sure.
know this person? And they're like, yeah,
Right.
she's great.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I found you as a musician with musical kids. I am always very clear with the teacher, hey, I'm a professional musician as well. I'm working and I'm teaching. But I say it in the way that like I'm available at home to
Mhm.
reinforce what you're doing in lessons.
Mhm.
So if they need help with rhythm, like I don't know crap about playing harp, but I know how to read music. I know how to read
Yeah.
rhythms. And I think that's
Helpful for
helpful
sure.
for the teacher to know that I can partner in
Mhm.
that way. But at the end of the day, I'll always say, I think it's this, but defer to your teacher. Like,
Mhm.
make sure to ask your teacher if this is the
Yeah.
way they want to do it. I would probably
Right.
do it a little differently, but here's why. I don't think I grill teachers. I think I do my homework before I even would
Sure.
go into the lesson. But again, I
But how
have
do you find that
a
out?
network that I can,
As a
right.
student, how do you find that out? And what are you looking for? Are you looking for the person who's played the most concertos? Are you looking for the person that's been on faculty the longest? Like, what are you looking for as a student?
if I
Like
was
when
a
you're just
student in
before
a
you met
prior
the
life.
person, you're trying to find a list of people
Right.
online or whatever.
Well, I mean, you have this whole resource called Google. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I would probably do nowadays is I would Google the teacher's name and I would see, are there recordings? I would see, have they written any articles? You can learn a lot about a person by reading their writing, and their
Do they have a
philosophy.
website?
Do they have a website? Are they playing anywhere coming up that I can go see and listen to them play? And I think as an oboist, we really want to respect the way our teachers play because, there are models. Do you like the way they're interpreting these things? And you, even though you're a student, you're allowed to have thoughts. You're
Mm-hmm.
allowed to like the way a person sounds. You're allowed to not like this sound. If you don't like the way this person sounds, you don't have to study with them. But honestly, I don't want my students to sound like me. I have my own thing. I'm always encouraging them, like, hey, I make my reads this way because this is what I'm looking for. This works for me. Your face is different. You're a different person. You might like a bit of a brighter sound, and that can still sound beautiful. It's very subjective. So maybe, that teacher plays one way, but, a complimentary lesson, you'll be able to say, well, I really respect these recordings of this player's. Like, can you, help me gear my reads in this way? And they will give you good feedback about that. And if they're like, actually, it's my way or the highway, that's a teacher that I would probably not want to encourage my child to go to. I mean, yes, they do what they do for a reason. They have their ways set, and I have story time later about more of that kind of teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was a student, I would want to Google them, listen to them, read their writings, look at and maybe you can find some of their older students, the students that they've already taught, and say, see what they're up to, and, vet them that way. Like, hey, I'm interested in studying with this teacher. Can you hop on the phone and tell me about your experience with them?
Mm-hmm.
And most people, like, if somebody, connected with me and is like, I'm interested in studying with who I studied with, can we talk? I would be absolutely either get on the phone and say, yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I valid, I I'm in this teacher's corner all day, every day. This teacher really appreciates, the mind-body aspect. So they do a lot of breathing, and they do talk a lot about mental health. Or, this teacher is way about, everything is about fundamentals. So we got to get our fundamentals locked in before we can do anything else. Sometimes a student is looking for a teacher that is very, my way or the highway with the fundamentals, and other teachers.
And what works for
Express
one
yourself.
person
Music, right?
doesn't work for another, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's very personal, and knowing how you work best. Do you work best with someone that is going to be more of a taskmaster and like, no, do it
But
my
that
way?
gives you accountability, though. Too.
Right.
Those are the students that want that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or, and also I think it's important to know, like, this going to be, you're taking these music lessons. Is it going to be like your focus, or is it going to be one more thing on your list of 7? And so you're going to have like not as much time or as much like just priority on it. And that's okay, right? That's okay. But you have to know that your teacher's okay with that, and that you're setting yourself up for like this, you're both being on the same page about it.
Right. So, like, I have a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is right now my son, Gabriel, he is a violinist and he's been playing for a long time. He loves violin, but he also this year decided to do marching band as well. And he's played in that front ensemble. He's playing vibraphone. Well, he has a teacher who we were very clear with this summer, and we're like, violin is his priority, but he has these marching band commitments, and these are going to interfere with his lessons occasionally. And right now in October, it's more than just occasionally. It's like a lot. But his teacher's like, let's be flexible. I can show up to this rehearsal a little early and we can get your lesson in before this. It's as long as we communicate. His current teacher is like, I know you have a full plate. I know our lessons are usually on Wednesdays, but I also know that you're getting a lot of pressure from the band side to show up for those rehearsals. So, and it's great. And it's the type of teacher that he needs, instead of like a teacher's like, nope, this is our lesson day and Some teachers are like that, and that's fine because they have full schedules. This is the only time I'm available to see you. If you can't see me at this time, then let's reconnect in 6 months when your life is more open to my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that as well. But for our life, we have a teacher right now that's like, my life is all over the place. Let's get in what we can. I value you. I want to keep working with you. I'm proud to be your teacher. And I think that that's really important, is knowing. And again, I think at the end of the day, it just really comes down to communication styles,
Mm-hmm.
and those expectations are set. Hey, my life is going to be really crazy in October. I'm not going to be able to have lessons regularly, but I have my violin region coming up and I still really want lessons, but I'm being pulled in a million different directions. How can we work this out? And
Mm-hmm.
teacher's like, I've got you. Let's figure something out, because I want to keep being in your corner because you're worth it. So
Yeah, great.
yeah,
So do you want to kind of enter into those
pivot.
toxic stories or not?
So I think the question should be, let's open it like this. And this is the elephant in the practice room that we did not discuss in school. When is it not okay? When do you know it's time to break up with a teacher or to find a different teacher? What are those like red flags? Is it okay to leave a teacher? I know a lot of kids are like super loyal to a fault that they end up getting hurt. So when is it okay, and in what circumstances is it okay to give yourself permission to break up with a teacher? And then how do you go about that? So why don't you, like, what is it, a text message? Is it a conversation? Do you make your parents do it for you if you're younger? Like, I would love your thoughts on this
Oh,
before I get into my tea.
we haven't exactly like we have not pre-planned this. Like this is just
No,
we're just talking, right?
this is a conversation. When is it
So
okay? When do you need to break up with a teacher?
my automatic gut answer is when they make you feel badly about yourself.
Can you give some specific examples without dropping names or
Nope.
anything? Or
Nope.
okay,
No, what I can do is I can say
your face is turning red a little bit.
good, I need some
You're
color. So I think, yeah, I think that this is a huge, huge elephant in the room. I think that there's a lot of abuse that goes on in student-teacher relationships, and we don't call it that.
You're not talking about just the physical abuse. You're talking
No,
about
I'm
the
talking about years
teaching component.
of just
You suck. Why aren't you better?
yeah, and it's not always that. It's more of a a manipulative situation, and or the student there being lack of boundaries. So the teacher being so involved with the student's life that to the point where it's like controlling, and or the opposite where it's like the teacher is just so not aware of what's going on with the student that it's like
You
not
don't feel
it's
that
not
the teacher gives a crap about you.
yeah, it's not like helpful to you as a student. So like there's that sweet spot, right? I think you just know when it's not working for you. And ultimately your teacher isn't supposed to be like, this person you're not supposed to show up to lessons and everything you do is just great and wonderful and like, yeah, you're the best. Like you don't go there for like just accolades. You go there for growth, right? So if your teacher is allowing you to, celebrating what you're doing well and pushing you to grow in other ways, that's a healthy relationship, right? And genuinely caring about you as a person. And when they're asking you to do things that are counterproductive to your well-being, and that could be the spectrum is so huge on this, right? Or treating you in a way that is counterproductive to you being able to be your best as a musician, then that's the answer. That's when there's a better fit out there.
Hmm.
Is that too vague?
I mean, it's definitely vague. I would love an example. It doesn't have to be a personal example, but I mean, I know you. I know what some things you're talking about, but maybe an example would be like,
oh, here's an easy example. I have an easy example.
I have a couple examples.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, this is not personal, but like, say you've been sick and you didn't get an opportunity to prepare materials appropriately. Again, this is not about anybody specific. I'm not going to get in
Right.
trouble. But you go into your lesson and your teacher is basically like, this is basically awful. We need to completely revamp our trajectory for your career and start training you to be a teacher instead of a performer. Which is nothing
Mm,
wrong with being a teacher, but
mm,
say if you're a performance major and a teacher that you worshiped said something like that, it would destroy you. It would be very hurtful. You would second guess yourself. And you're like, well, I've been sick. I haven't had the opportunity to do this. And that's a very old school way of teaching and trying to bring out the best of the student, is scaring them. Like, you're going to get cut from orchestra if you don't play this at this speed, or this audition determines your entire future. If you don't, pass this, then you're worthless. I mean, I obviously am being dramatic, but it comes back to the audition side of things. Like, this audition doesn't determine your worth. Just, studio competition, I think, can be really toxic. And I think a lot of teachers can
feel that.
perpetuate
Mm-hmm.
that.
Sure.
There's a healthy competition, but at the end of the day, you want a studio that's supportive of each other and celebrates people's wins. But like, if there's a chair test, not everybody's going to get, first chair. Sometimes there are better players, and we can celebrate that too. But encouraging a toxic level of competition within a studio, I
Mm-hmm.
think, would be a good example. Obviously, like the obvious ones right now, like there's sexism and preference and
Mm-hmm.
you know racial things, and that's all toxic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just don't get into that drama.
Yeah.
And we grew up with a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's being called out a lot more now, and there's more of a
Yeah,
conversation around it for sure, which is great.
yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of people out there right now who are our age and younger too, but a lot of people out there who are sort of suffering in silence through this. And a lot of
Hmm.
their who they are today has been shaped by these relationships that they had early on,
Hmm.
and for better and worse.
That stuff can make you quit. It can
Right.
absolutely make
Absolutely.
you just be like, and it doesn't have to be just the most obvious thing. Like, it can be the way your teacher shows up for you.
Mm,
Are they like just on your phone and being like, yep, that sounds good. Why don't you play it again?
mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. Are they
they're not,
present?
they're not invested.
Mm-hmm.
That's toxic. That can
Sure.
make you feel dismissed and like,
Yeah.
well, all the work I'm putting in, it doesn't freaking matter anyway. I think another thing, and I'm going to give an example about one of my children.
Mm-hmm.
My son had a teacher several years ago for several years, and this teacher was from a different country and was very tough, very, very tough in that traditional country's tough love kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And he did everything for this teacher. Night and day, he lived to please this teacher to the point where he would go into a lesson and he would either come out and melt down in the car, or he would come out with a smile on his face, very rarely. And he would say, my God, she gave me a compliment today and it was everything.
Mm-hmm.
He, and as a firstborn, he thrives on validation, and he got to the point where he was having these breakdowns if he couldn't get something up to this speed. And he was in middle school, and it was affecting his physical health to that point where
Absolutely.
he would
Yeah.
like vomit and he
Yeah.
would like lose sleep
Yeah.
over this. And he was in middle school, and I'm like,
Yeah. It's not okay.
F that, F that.
Yeah.
And as his parent, I was the one to call it. And he was like dead set against it. He was like, no, like, she's going to make me better. I just have to do it. I'm just not working hard enough. I'm like, buddy, I've been in the game a long time, and I'm officially pulling the mom card now and saying, I don't like how she's making you feel.
Right.
And there's times for tough love, right? I've had to give conversations,
Mm-hmm.
even just this week, like, hey, I'm showing up for you. You're not showing up for me these past couple of weeks with your
Mm-hmm.
preparations. What's going on? Or do we need to talk about, going a different
Yeah.
direction? This was not that. This was a my way or the highway, and nothing is ever good enough except every now and then. And she knew it. She knew that these one little tidbits of compliments every couple months, just one little like, You did a good job. That's
Kept
coming
him
along. Keep going.
hooking him and
It was like everything. And he would just
keeping him.
need that. And so when I tried to say, I think there's a lot of very good teachers in this area. Let me start doing some research, find a new teacher. No, 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 nobody's going to be as good as her. I'm just not, doing it the way it needs to be done. And so there's one day he came home in tears. He was sick to his stomach. And I sat down. I'm like, I'm going to make this call. You're not going to like it, but I'm going to find you a teacher who doesn't make you feel this way and who
There
can
you
make
go.
you just as good.
There you go.
And that's when we started working with a friend of yours that you recommended.
Yeah.
And totally took Gabriel under his wing. I'm going to cry.
Mm.
And just made Gabriel love music again.
Mm.
And if I wasn't in his corner to say, like, this is not healthy, you can have a teacher that makes you as great as you want to be, that helps you on your journey and doesn't make you feel like shit. We can find that for you. It's not like, oh, I can like the teacher and be, but I won't be a good player versus like, I have to be scared of my teacher to be like the best. Like you can have a teacher that makes you feel awesome and also pushes you and doesn't make you feel like crap. Like
Absolutely.
like it exists and we found it, I think that parents sometimes they don't quite know what's going on in lessons because a lot of times parents don't sit in on lessons, but I would check in with your students and really make sure that how do the lessons go? Like not just musically, like are you happy with the teacher? Like are you excited to go into your lessons or are you scared?
Right.
And like if you're scared, are you scared just because you're not prepared and like you don't want to embarrass yourself or are you scared because this teacher's going to make you feel like crap?
Yeah.
And
well, what about
yeah.
Do you mind? What about
No.
when you're in college, though? Like, how do you handle this when you're in college, right?
That's tricky. That's tricky.
Again, you would vet them incredibly and their program before you sign up with them in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you get into things just like when you start dating someone, right? You think it's one way or whatever, and then like 6 months down the road, it's like, oh, I didn't see all this.
I think if I had to do things differently, I mean, I'm actually really lucky. I got along with both of my teachers. I still talk to my teachers. But if I was in college now and I got involved with a teacher that was not serving me, I mean, even if it was awesome musically, I think now I know enough to guard my mental health and how much more important that is because we didn't really talk about that so much.
Right.
Back. I mean, I don't want to be super woke right now, like mental health and blah, blah, blah. But as a musician,
Why not?
It's 50% of the job. It's 50% of the job, essentially. But
it's like 90% of the job.
right.
It really is.
Right. But I think if I was going into college now and I got involved with a teacher who even was musically awesome, but not encouraging in the way, like, not understanding of how full my plate is and like the emotional side of things, and I would start looking for a different teacher. But I know some people get like, oh, I have scholarship at this school, I've got to stay here, I've got to tough it out. If you don't want to leave, maybe you can have a serious conversation with a teacher, right? Because you got involved with them for a reason in the first place. So maybe the conversation can look like, and it's going to be so scary. Oh my God, it would be so scary as a sophomore in college to sit down with your teacher who, is on this pedestal and say, hey, I really need to talk about, I'm having some feelings and maybe you can help me like navigate through some stuff. But when you said this at the lesson the other day, this is how I took it. Was that your intention? And I bet like a lot of the times, I would say most of the time, teachers don't want their students to feel like shit.
Right.
If I found out that a comment I made in a lesson was living in my students' head for a week and they were just dwelling on it, and it was obviously I would feel terrible, but I would want the chance to explain myself and apologize. I would apologize, and I would never want to make you feel that way. Please, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't intend that, obviously. I would never say you need to just grow a thicker skin because that's our business. And that would
about
suck.
those teachers
if that responded like that, I would leave. I'd give them a chance.
What about those teachers? About those teachers out there that are listening and are listening to us and going, they're just too worried about everyone's feelings.
Okay, maybe but we're still paying our bills, playing music, and my students still text me and call me and come to my house at the end of the day, and I haven't seen them in 10 years. And I have a relationship at the end of the day. And you know what? They're probably going to come to my funeral, and they're the ones that are going to like play music at my funeral, and they're going to be like, you know what? This teacher cared about me. This teacher is the reason why I'm teaching my students and why I care. And like at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And yes, we want to
Exactly.
make good musicians, but we're not just making musicians, we're making people. We're growing people, and we're sending out into the wild, and we want them to be good people. It also reflects back on us. If my student has success, I mean, I'm so
Right.
happy for my student, but like, you know, I get to live a little bit through that. That's awesome. Like, you got that job. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. I would like, it's not just a flex like for us, but we're like genuinely happy in that parent kind of way. Like, wow, I'm just so proud of you. And it would really suck if, you know, I had a student that went out and had success and didn't call me and let me know. Hey, guess what? I won this job. Hey, guess what? I'm going to be on this recording. I still share my successes with my teachers,
Awesome.
and they're happy for me, and I would be happy for my students. So, yeah, does that answer your question? I don't even remember what your question was. I'm very passionate about this.
Obviously,
Just,
which is good.
yeah,
I
yeah, but
think
you are too.
of course, one thing I wanted to kind of point out, you just touched on the fact that again, it's a relationship, and ultimately the quality of your relationships determine the quality of your life. So what is your relationship with your teacher, right? That's directly going to affect your quality of life. And so it's really important to have that good fit.
Yeah.
And
And it
yeah,
trickles down into
right.
generations. And I
Everything.
think
Yeah,
like
everything.
we are in an opportunity right now. We have opportunities right now to change the game of the music that we're teaching our kids, you
Mm,
know, like
hmm.
bringing in more diverse composers and not just playing like the old stuff. And, you know, they're going to take that and they're going to teach their students, you know, and teaching our students why some of this stuff is important. It's snowballs. You know, we have opportunities and we have these responsibilities as educators, and it's it all comes just down to the relationship with
Right.
your kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
And your student. Sometimes it's a adult that you're teaching, right?
student, your student.
Sorry.
Yes,
I had to correct you.
yes. No, it's I don't have a lot of adult students at
Mm,
this time, but
yeah.
when do you know it's time to
Mm,
break up with a student? How do you go about that? What does the conversation look like? When people change, sometimes it's a mutual. It's
yeah.
okay to both walk
Yeah.
away and
Yeah, I
change.
mean, I'm definitely okay with working on the goals that matter to the student, right? it's not my goals or nothing, right? It's what matters to the student. But if the student tells me I want to work on X and then they don't make any progress toward it, it's like, well, you've been telling me you want to do this. So I've been giving you all these different ways, and I've given you this grace and that grace, and I don't know how to help you any further. Like when you just feel like you've run out of your own you've racked your brain for every way that you know how to work with the student, you're still not seeing any kind of growth. Like, and growth doesn't have to be you're playing the notes better, right? Growth can be that you guys are communicating better. Growth can be that the student is now showing up on time versus 20 minutes late,
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome. Yep.
There can be all kinds of different growth, but if you're just like frustrated by the situation and you're not seeing that you're providing any value to them, and honestly, I mean, it's an exchange. Like if you're still getting money, right? So if you feel like the money is still worth it to you, then fine. But at a certain point, I think when you get to a certain point, just are you seeing growth with that relationship? And your relationships in some way, no matter what relationship you have in your life, there should be some kind of growth there. And there's different seasons, and growth, like I said, can look in like different things. But what's your answer to this? When do you know that it's time to fire someone?
I like the word breakup, but
Okay,
fire definitely works in some situations for
breakup is
sure.
fine too.
I mean, I have a couple examples, but I have some personal metrics that I'm finding are really, you know, some are gut based. One is if I'm driving in to teach a student and I have that feeling like, "Ah, I've got
Mm,
so and so right now." Like,
mm,
I don't like feeling like that.
sure.
That's an instinct side for me that says something's wrong. Another one is respect.
Mm.
I have a student, and every now and then people have bad days. People have bad days, and you might be a little grumpy at a lesson, and hopefully, I can change your mind after some playing, and
Mm-hmm.
but if there's kind of some prolonged disrespect, or like, "Ugh, I already told you, like, let me do it," or I don't have time for that.
Sure.
I'm too old. I'm too old to tolerate that. And so that's another one. The preparations are a big one. Sometimes, kids are super prepared. Other times they're not. They've got a lot going on. My thing I say in lessons is you only need to learn one new thing. We're growing because
Mm-hmm.
like what you said, like it's all
Mm-hmm.
about growth. We only need one new, but after a while, if we're a month of still trying to learn the D major scale and I've given you very minimal things to prepare, and I've had to do this a couple times just this past month. But if I just give you one, etude to work on and these two scales, but the expectation is I'm giving you minimal things. The expectation is I want quality. Doesn't have to be perfect, but give me 90%, right? Quality things over quantity. The expectation is you don't have a lot to work on, but the things I want you to work on, I want you to work on them. I want them mostly clean. If it's been about a month, or even, 2 weeks, starting to turn into a pattern,
Mm-hmm.
I connect with the parents and I say, hey, this is happening.
Sure.
You're paying for these lessons. Now, I do have a clause built into my studio policies that I give every student the beginning of every school year, and says after a couple of warnings, or I think it's like after a warning, and there's still no progress, I reserve the right to dismiss the student and no refunds will be given. I mean, now I'm making the students pay at the beginning of the month as well, but I always give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I always give them a chance. And then the second chance is I communicate with the parent because I want to give them an opportunity to have some agency over their life. Like, hey, here's a warning. If it's not fixed by next week, I'm going to have to talk to the parent. If it's not fixed by the following week, then we can discuss, separating. And for the most part, they get the crap together. But the disrespect, like you said, the end of the day, it just comes back to the relationship. If it's not serving the student anymore. And I do want to be a little bit selfish. I teach because I enjoy teaching.
Sure.
And I could absolutely sit there I couldn't, but somebody could sit there and listen to this kid struggle with a D major scale for 6 months and just be sitting there and be like, well, I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
I'm
Sure.
getting paid whether or not I'm too old for that.
Right.
I don't want to just sit there for the money.
Right.
I can't, because it's going to reflect back on me if the
Mm-hmm.
student goes and plays like, oh, you've been with Seshadri for 2 years and you can't play a scale. What kind of a teacher is that? There's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of that involved too, but I don't want to do that anymore. I did do that in my 20s because you need money,
Right.
but I didn't have a podcast to listen to tell me, hey,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily healthy. It's healthy
Mm-hmm.
to have your bills paid, but
Mm-hmm.
you
So you're
can still
saying if you don't,
enjoy what you do.
yeah,
You can, from your side, you can still enjoy your side of things as well. It's not just about the growth of the student. It's mostly
absolutely.
about the growth of the student, but I will be a better teacher if I enjoy working with the student. If they're bringing stuff to the table, I will show up for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a little hack that I was kind of joking about, but not totally joking. We always have a few of our favorite students. I'm going to be honest. And I strategically put my favorite students either at the end of the day and the end of the week or the beginning of the day,
Smart.
because I know I can start like, I'm going to show up and blah, blah, blah. We get to work on this. And I
Yep.
know that she's going
Gets
to
you
have her tempo
there.
ready. And then
Gets you through the
versus
week.
that let's just see how today goes. It's hit or
Yeah.
miss today. And that's some
Uh-huh.
students, they're human.
Yep.
But yeah, like those are some little
That's smart.
strategies that I use for myself. And maybe that makes me selfish, but most of my students still talk to me
Yeah.
after they're
That's
done.
a big
So
deal.
yeah. But breaking up with a student is never to be taken lightly. It has to be a pretty frequent happenings of like disrespect, and that doesn't happen often. I have one clear, like, disrespectful student that it was time to go a few years ago. I've given warnings here and there. I give them the opportunity to step up.
Right.
So, but those are my hard lines. The disrespect
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean,
happen.
that's healthy, right?
Yeah,
You got to have boundaries.
for everything, not just teaching. But
Mm-hmm.
no, that's good.
Awesome.
That's good.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll bring this up again in some other way before too long. There's a lot to dissect, just little different avenues we went down just now.
But this is so helpful
So,
because I wish we didn't have these conversations when we were first starting to teach and
right,
looking for students and even looking for teachers. Like
right.
I would have loved to have somebody be like, you know what? I can still like my teacher and be a badass player. They're not mutually
Yeah, and
exclusive.
I think it's important to stress that the best teachers aren't always the people who have the most concertos to their name or I was going to say CDs, recordings, or you know, there's plenty of teachers out there that are really, really quality and maybe even better than the people
Yep.
who have the biggest names, right?
So think about, here's an awesome analogy that I don't know, maybe somebody brought it up a while ago. Think about Olympic gymnasts or
Sure.
Olympic ice skaters.
Yeah.
And then you look at the coaches on the sidelines.
Yep.
Those coaches are not doing all the Simone Biles things
Mm-hmm.
on the floor or the triple axels on the ice.
Right.
But they're Olympic coaches. They're
Yeah.
getting these kids or these
Yeah.
athletes there. And there's so many so many similarities between athletes and
Definitely.
musicians and the coaches and the teaching. So yeah, the best teachers are not some are amazing players and they're amazing teachers as well. But a lot of times they're not like working full time with, a major symphony orchestra, that they just love teaching and they're very good at what they do. And they make those students who go on to these things and hopefully to be good teachers too themselves.
Well, ultimately too, I think it's important to find a teacher, side note, that does teach and has experience teaching, because again, whatever skill you're developing, whatever skill you're practicing. So if you're not practicing teaching, if you're not doing it, how good are you? You may be really, really good at your instrument, at playing your instrument, but how good are you at telling someone else how to do it or helping them figure it out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Usually not great when you first start, let's be honest. And you get better as you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's normal.
Right.
That's any skill. That's anything. Like when you first started your instrument, when you first started to, try and get the basketball in the hoop or write your name in cursive or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not good at it. First you're shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to do it little bits and you get better little bits at a time, right?
Yes, but I acknowledge that as a performing musician, teaching makes me better at my instrument.
There you
and
go.
I actually play
Yeah.
better as well.
Agreed.
And so,
Agreed.
I mean, I'm thinking about fundamentals when I'm playing. When I wasn't teaching, I was just playing to play and win the job and do the best I can. But when I'm teaching, I can actually, in those moments, I apply those to my own personal practice. Or dude, I had to look up a fingering yesterday. This weird trill came out and I'm like, I don't remember the last time I've done this. There's some trick fingering. So yeah.
Yeah, you learn something.
So we're still growing even as teachers, and it makes us better at this stuff.
Yeah, right. One aids the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good
this
to
was
have
such a good conversation.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you. Hope you have
Thanks for thinking of it.
Yeah, have an awesome rest of your day.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.